My name is Mitch Jones, and I am a cultural history student. And for my dissertation, I will be studying Broadway, specifically Broadway villains. I'll be studying villains from the year 1900 to the year 2000. So three per year, starting in 1900, ending with 2000. That'll be 303 total plays to try and understand how our ideas of an acceptable villain has changed. Not all of these are going to be the most artistic plays. They're the most popular plays, the ones that repeated themselves the most. So the goal is to get a large sample size of plays that people tended to go to. Um, an example of this sort of bias would be Shakespeare, like a villain bias. Shakespeare had a villain bias towards ambitious status quo changers, violent men who would upset the status quo by killing someone powerful and important to try and supersede that and replace it with their own power. Some examples include Macbeth, Julius Caesar, and Hamlet. In Macbeth, our protagonist Macbeth would be the villain, where he's trying to kill the king and take over Denmark to become the new king of Denmark. Julius Caesar, he's trying to take over Rome and become the emperor of Rome, replacing a republic system. And Hamlet is about King Claudius, the new king of this kingdom, that has killed his brother in order to gain the throne, and Hamlet unable to decide if it's right to kill him or not. Those are very standard, expected Shakespearean tragedies where the status quo is good and ambition is bad. So you can see this sort of bias in play. My dissertation will not be focusing on Julius C- or on Shakespeare, of course. It'll be focusing on American musicals. So I wanted to take two extremes, one from 1900 and one from 2000, most popular musicals of each year, to try and explain the concept of this thesis. So the most played musical in 1900 was a musical called Chris and the Wonderful Lamp, which was taken from a book called Chris and the Wonderful Lamp. It's about Chris, who's a child who comes across the magical lamp from the story of Aladdin from A Thousand and One Arabian Nights. And he rubs it, and a genie comes out. And one thing that is very unique about this story that sort of shows the era it took place in is they never call him the genie. He's referred to as the slave in the lamp. 1900 was 37 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, so there's a very clear pro-emancipation narrative here. So Chris is our villain. He's a child who's given a magical slave that will do whatever he wants, and he abuses and neglects this slave, having him replace him in certain things, forcing him to take him on magical adventures. And while Chris is having the time of his life, you can see the slave in the lamp slowly losing more and more enthusiasm for this. This gradual decay of energy, this gradual decay of joy, as he gets more and more divorced from his freedom. This comes to a head at the very end of the play, where Chris is trying to show his friends that he has a slave in a lamp, and he rubs the lamp, and the genie does not come out. And he goes home upset, thinking he'll never see the genie again, or the slave in the lamp, and he rubs it one more time, and the slave in the lamp pops out, explaining to Chris that he's read the Emancipation Proclamation, and he now knows that he's free, and he should be able to enjoy his life however he wants, and he will never visit Chris again. So there's a very clear narrative of exploitation being put on in play here, where the genie, the slave in the lamp, is essentially good, and Chris is essentially selfish for forcing him to be in this position. The most viewed play of 2000 was a play called The Full Monty. This is a play about male strippers. It's about men who were laid off of their job in a steel mill, forced into bad situations, so they decide to go to stripping, in kind of like a competition to Chippendales, which I guess was a more common thing in that time. These are, again, men who are in a difficult situation who decide to go into a more exploitative form of labor. But the success, the conclusion of this is not they leave and they find more fulfilling lives. The conclusion of this is they become more confident. The villain of the Full Monty, if you can call it a villain, is their lack of self-confidence. And as these men get more confident stripping, they become more successful. Their lives get better. There's a divorced man who gets back together with his wife, that sort of thing. Um, so Chris and the Wonderful Lamp reaffirms that the government has done a moral thing by freeing the slaves. Um, the Full Monty is more about how you can make money doing this, how being successful in your own way with your own ability, even if it's embarrassing or if it's not seen as societally acceptable, is a good thing. Obviously, these are very different key demographics. Chris and the Amazing Lamp is aimed towards children. The Full Monty is certainly aimed towards adults. But there's a similarity and a difference in how they treat this sort of like exploitation of men. Um, Obviously, in the final dissertation, there will be a much larger sample size, and it will not go from comparing 1900 to 2000 directly. There will be many, many in between steps. Um, this research is one of the many pushes to expand historical analysis to different subfields of history, especially cultural historical analysis. And there is a good body of work when it comes to studying the arts in terms of history. And while this particular subject, the subject of studying villains, has not been done, there are many, many studies involving Broadway plays that can be used as a reference, or hopefully, this play can also, or this dissertation can also be used to reference others. It'll hopefully serve as a means for others to explore, learn, and argue their own opinions for many years to come. Thank you.